Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. In this video, I'll be sharing a workshop for my Breathe for Change SELF capstone project. This workshop will be themed Breathe for Creativity. And in this workshop, we'll be alternating between some guided drawing and kind of doodling exercises um, followed by some movement, also guided movement. And I'll share a little bit about how, what the context and background of this process that we're about to go through. But first, just make sure you have your space set up with what you'll need. So you just need a little bit of space. I am going to be moving in a smaller space today. So if you're feeling full of energy and you want to have a bigger space to move in, that's great, but you also don't need a bigger space. You can move in just a small space. You might want to have a chair. A comfortable chair is great, like the one I'm sitting in, or a different kind of favorite chair. I would recommend having some water to drink to stay hydrated. And for the drawing part of this workshop, I really love using blank paper. So you could have a journal or a sketchbook or a notebook with just some blank unlined paper. You can use other kind of paper too, but this is just kind of maybe the best option for the purposes of the activities. And then you might want to also have some fun markers. It could be pencils. Any kind of drawing utensil that you enjoy using will work for this. And you could be doing this, following along with this guided workshop on your own, by yourself, or you might be with other people, either, maybe you're with a friend or family member, or perhaps you're even in a group. So just know that I'll kind of guide with some options depending on your unique situation as you're going through this guided workshop. So oh, and one more thing. Be sure as you go through any kind of movement, of course, make sure that your space is safe. And also just be mindful if you're choosing to participate in the movement prompts, be mindful of your own body, your own needs, and just consider your own well-being and safety. So if you're navigating any type of injury or recovering from something, just make sure you're checking in with yourself and doing the movements that support you the best. And of course, if you have any questions about certain types of movements or exercises, if you're unsure if they're the best for you, be sure you check in with a doctor or a medical professional before you try something that you're not sure about. What I'll be guiding you through today, as I mentioned before, is something that I have been inspired and by a variety of experiences and sources, and have gradually integrated these different ways of learning and thinking and experiencing. And hello, there's fun birds chirping in my singing in the space here. So you might be outside or inside as you're following along. But I'm inspired by a number of sources of inspiration. So I want to just share a little bit of the story of how this came to be, this process came to be. And I've taught variations of this workshop for people in person. And so I wanted to try creating this as a video lesson for fun and to see who might be engaged in this way and learn from this process. So if you're listening, go ahead and hydrate if you feel like it. And feel free to just relax for a moment as I share a little bit about the background and context of this process. So as I mentioned, we'll be alternating between some drawing prompts, visual drawing, that kind of drawing, and movement prompts. And I have been a longtime student of movement fundamentals. I studied in Iowa with a wonderful professor named Jane Hawley, who created that curriculum, and also with other teachers who learned that method of studying movement. And she created a practice that's part of movement fundamentals, one part of it, called the four phases practice. And that is a practice that she has developed with specific questions that guide a mover's inquiry and process of learning. And I've participated as a dance student, as a movement student in that practice many times with many different groups of people over many years. And as I've gone back and forth between the movement and the reflective journaling, I realized that when I was moving, I was kind of shifting into a certain state of being. When I was moving and improvising, I was finding a connection to a really beautiful certain sense of being and a quality that um, helped quiet kind of an overthinking or overactiveness that sometimes is in my own mind, and I know I'm not alone there. Um, and so I was able to kind of shift into a different state through the movement. And sometimes when I would return to journaling and going into a verbal processing mode, I would kind of come out of that state. So in this process, I had a memory come back to me of when I was in high school. And when I was in high school, I had the opportunity to learn from many wonderful teachers. And during my junior year in high school, I took a Art 1 class. And we had a wonderful teacher at my high school, and she taught us that anyone could learn to draw and that anyone could develop the skills needed to learn to draw. So it wasn't just reserved for people who were natural at it. And I found that so fascinating. And in the class, we did a variety of different exercises. And one of my favorite and most memorable that we did a lot was contour drawing. And in contour drawing, there's a whole different range of variety of ways of doing this, but there are it's a process of looking at the edge of something, your perceived edge of a person or an object, and you follow that edge with your eye. So like if you were drawing me, you'd be following where I'm pointing with my finger, and you'd be following these edges with your pencil on the paper, but you're not looking at your paper. Either not looking at all, or you're looking very little. There's said different ways to approach contour drawing, but the basic premise is that you're really focusing your eyes on the edge while your pencil or pen moves. So it's not going to be perfect in most cases. And doing these contour drawings put me in a similar state of being that I was finding myself in when I was moving through the four phases practice that I was describing earlier. So I started to do the four phases practice. I would move in the space, and then when it was time to reflect and journal, I would start to do contour drawing, sometimes with other people or objects in the space. And in this way, I was able to kind of stay in a certain state that I found to be very healing, to be very helpful, and also very enjoyable for myself. And I've also found it to be a way to tap into deeper levels of creativity to solve problems, and also just open to more creative possibilities for life. So that's kind of a little bit of the background. I'll also be using this fantastic book. My copy is kind of falling apart because I've looked at it so much, but it's called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards. So This is a wonderful, wonderful book. And this one, I believe, copyright 1979. So um, the research on the brain is continually evolving and more information and understanding is coming out. But what she talks about in this book and really details really well is a shift in states of being. She talks about L mode and R mode, so left brain mode and right brain mode. And I think that, as I mentioned, that brain research is perhaps evolving, so that might be a little bit different now if someone were to describe it now. But I just want to mention that I'll be reading some parts out of this book. So before we get to that, let's go ahead and start with 3 breaths together. And we'll do a little movement activity since you've been sitting and listening for a while, and then we'll come back to some drawing. So we'll be alternating, as I mentioned, between movement and drawing. And that movement, you could choose to stay seated and move from your chair, or you could get up and move around your space. You can always make choices. Everything I'm sharing in this video is just an invitation. So feel free to just observe also if that's fun. So you can begin by just finding a comfortable place to, you could be sitting, standing, lying down. I'm going to be sitting, but just choose a comfortable place for yourself. And you could begin by simply noticing your breath. You could also notice the parts of your body that are connected to the floor or a chair or a surface of support. And perhaps just notice, you might find yourself shifting. Continue noticing your breath. And if it feels good to you, you can also just soften your gaze or your eyes. So you could allow your eyes to just gently soften, or you might even close your eyes if you feel safe to do that. And just continue to breathe. Breathe into your belly. If it feels good, you could breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Softening the muscles of your face. And just allowing yourself to be supported by the floor, the chair, and also by your own bones, by your own skeleton and bones. You can just sense or connect with that sense of your bones. And if your eyes were closed or even softer gaze, you might just gently open your eyes. Look around the space that you find yourself in. And perhaps something just catches your visual attention. Just notice it with your eyes. You can allow that image to come to you, almost like the image is moving toward you as you look at it. And then you might look again, something else that catches your visual attention. You might also just kind of notice your other senses. Like I just heard a sound of a bird chirping. So you might notice sounds as you're looking. But just take a few more moments to look at something and then let it go and look at something else. And maybe it's something interesting or just kind of looking and connecting with that. It could be something away from you. It could also be, oh, maybe you just look at your own hands. Take a moment to really see the shapes and colors and lines. And then maybe find one more thing to just rest your eyes on and just notice what it is. Maybe some things are more interesting to others. You can just kind of notice your reactions, but notice what you notice. You notice colors or shapes. Beautiful. And we'll continue noticing the breath and moving into a little more breath awareness, which is one of the second parts of a Breathe for Change workshop after settling in. So the invitation here is to move. Actually, let's start with being still on the inhale, in your inhale, and moving on your exhale. And I'll give you an idea for the first movement, which could be, if this feels good to you, your movement could just be circling your fingertips and gently circling through your wrists. Okay, so that could be the movement. So being still, or we're never totally still, but finding a gentle stillness on your inhale and then circling through your wrist gently in a way that feels good to you on your exhale. Yeah. And you could also move in a different way if you'd rather move in a different way, but that's just an option, an invitation. Okay, so on your own timing, I'll guide this, but feel free to slow it down with your own breath or speed it up with your own breath. Here we go. Inhaling, just finding an easy stillness. And exhaling, circling through the wrists and fingertips, or moving in any way that you feel inspired to. Inhaling, finding an easy stillness. Exhaling, circling through the wrists and the fingertips, or moving in any way. Inhaling, finding an easy stillness. And exhaling, circling through the fingertips and the wrists. One more time. Inhaling, easy stillness. Exhaling, circling the fingertips and wrists. Beautiful. Great. Okay, so we're going to continue with the breath awareness. And always just allow yourself to breathe naturally and freely, even as we're doing these exercises with more awareness. So for the next exercise, this time we'll move on the inhale and then find stillness on the exhale. So it might take a little concentration and you might mix it up, and that's okay because we're switching, doing the opposite of what we just did. Okay, so on the inhale, we're going to find stillness. On the exhale, the invitation here I'm going to invite you is just take really easy, really gentle, really slow circles or any movement that feels good in your shoulders. It could be breathing your shoulders in and up. Maybe you might even just check in before we start with the breath. Just notice how your shoulders are doing, and if some shoulder rolls seem like that might feel good. Remember, you could also take any movement that you want. Could be just walking. I've done this exercise before, just walking and then being still. That can be a fun way to work with this exercise also, especially if you're in a group. Okay, so we'll begin by breathing in and having stillness, and then exhaling, the invitation is shoulders or any movement. So here we go, breathing in, stillness. And exhaling, little circles through the shoulders. Breathing in, finding that easy stillness. Exhaling, taking some easy circles through the shoulders. Breathing in, finding gentle stillness. And exhaling into any circling or movement through your shoulders that feels good. Breathing in, finding an easy stillness. And exhaling, maybe into some gentle circles through the shoulders. Inhaling, finding the stillness. Exhaling, maybe taking your circles in a new direction. Being really slow and gentle with yourself. Inhaling, finding that easy stillness. Exhaling, circling or moving through the shoulders. One more time. Inhaling, gentle stillness. Exhaling, gentle, easy, mindful movement through your shoulders. Beautiful. Okay, so just checking my notes here. That breath was so lovely to share with you. And we'll start by doing a contour drawing. So you can get out your notebook, and this is a continuation of what I was sharing a little bit earlier. So I'd like to just read a little bit about the background of contour drawing that is explained so beautifully in this book, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards. My copy is kind of falling apart. Okay, so she writes, and feel free to just continue being mindful of your breath for a moment before we get started with the drawing. In the last chapter, I said that an effective way to turn off your dominant left hemisphere with its verbal symbolic style of working and to turn on your non-dominant right brain with its spatial relational style is to present your brain with a task that the left brain either can't or won't work at. We have used she describes different methods. Now we'll try another, more drastic strategy that will force a stronger cognitive shift and suppress your owl mode more completely. Now, I'll mention here, there's nothing wrong with the owl mode or left brain thinking. It's just that sometimes I think in our culture and society, that side gets a bit emphasized. And so this is a way to bring in that holistic, our whole brain, our whole creative self. And breathing for creativity is really important. So we can use different parts of our brain and different parts of our awareness. And I think they actually all do go together. I think more current research might have another way of looking at that. But this is... we're going to get into contour drawing here. So, okay, this technique that helps shift into what she calls the R mode is called pure contour drawing. And your left hemisphere, or your analytical side part of your brain, is probably not going to like it. Contour drawing was introduced by a respected art teacher, Kimon Nicolaitis, in his 1941 book, The Natural Way to Draw. The method has been widely used by art teachers. I believe that our new knowledge about how the brain divides its workload provides a conceptual basis for understanding why pure contour drawing is effective as a teaching method. Nicolaitis apparently felt that the reason the pure contour method improved students' drawing was that it caused students to use both senses of sight and touch. It's so interesting. Nicolaitis recommended that students imagine that they were touching the form as they drew. It seems more likely now that the method works because the left brain rejects the slow, meticulous, complex perceptions of spatial relational information, thus allowing access to R mode processing. In short, pure contour drawing just doesn't suit the left brain style. It suits the style of the right brain. So that's a lot to take in, but it's interesting. And as I mentioned, this research is continually evolving. So in drawing, what we're going to do next, a contour is defined as an edge as you perceive it. As a method, pure contour drawing, which is sometimes termed blind contour drawing, entails close, intense observation as you draw the edges of a form without looking at the drawing while it is in progress. An edge is the place where two things meet. So, it could be where my own skull or hair meets the air. So that's the edge, okay? And we'll go ahead and give this a try in a moment. So if you'd like to get a drink of water, find that comfortable sitting place, get your notebook or your paper. And I'm going to use a permanent marker. There's the reason being partly so that I can show it up to my screen and it will show up really nicely. But as I mentioned before, use any kind of drawing utensil that you would like to use. And it can be a pencil or a pen, but the idea is not to erase and correct yourself here. It's just once you get started to shift into the mode. And the purpose of this drawing is not to try to make your drawing look exactly like what your contour drawing, but you might be surprised that you capture a certain essence. The purpose is to help shift or notice the shift into a different state or different way of perceiving. And so, with that, I'm going to invite you to do the pure contour drawing or the blind contour drawing, meaning don't look at your paper at all. Just look at what you're drawing. And I also am going to invite you to do what Kimon Nicolaitis, the art teacher from 1940s, in his 1940s book suggested, which is to just imagine that you're touching that edge of that object. What does it feel like? What's the quality of the line that you're following? So you might look around in your space and see if there's something interesting with different shapes and curves that you might enjoy looking at for just a few minutes. We won't stay with this for super long. And you could also choose, if your space doesn't have a lot of visually interesting things, you could choose to draw part of your own body, maybe your foot or your hand or something that you can kind of look at and turn away from so that you're not looking at your paper at all. Okay, so I'm going to look, for example, at some of the flowers in my space around me. And when you are ready, you've found an object that you'd really like to draw and be with for a little bit, just relax into comfort of your seat or spot and find a place to begin. And remember, you'll be following with your eyes the edge, the object. So it's sort of easy just to draw it on myself. If you were drawing me, you would follow, or a person, you would follow the edge with your eyes. And, there might be places like this where maybe you go in, but you could also go down. So you could go out and then come in and see the contour line of my shirt. You could, follow different contours. It doesn't have to be just the outside edge, I don't think. You could follow this kind of a line, or if it's easier to just stick with the outside edge, that's great too. The idea is to not pick up your pencil or marker. Just keep gently moving, and if you lose your place or get lost, just kind of gently come back. But don't look at your paper, because that's not the point. It's to shift into seeing and sensing in a certain way. Okay? You can start anywhere on the object, and when you're ready, go ahead and begin. Have fun with it. Notice your breath. You do this. Back to the connection to the floor. If your pen or pencil falls off the page, that's okay. Just come back to it. Notice those various details. Keep your line moving slowly. Just imagine you're touching the object, the edge, just the very edge of this line that you're following. If you get stuck, just see if you can find the edge and keep going until your eye meets another edge. And follow a continuous line or connection. Whenever you're ready, bring that drawing to a gentle close. And take a moment, just look at the object again, and then if you'd like to, go ahead and look at your drawing and see what you created. And it might be kind of surprising. I was contour drawing the leaves and plants over here, and this is what my contour drawing looked like when I got finished. So as you can see, it doesn't look exactly like the plant over there, but it did capture maybe some of the essence or some of the lines, some of the feeling, maybe in a little bit of a way. And remember, that's also not the purpose. The purpose was to shift into a different state. So just know, you might just notice, how did you feel doing that? And so I'm going to invite you just to put that drawing pencil and paper to the side, get another sip of water if you like. And just for fun, if you want to, you can stay seated for this part, or if you're feeling like you might want to stand up, feel free to stand up or sit down. I'm just going to change the angle here, so I will stand up, I think, after starting fading. So for this, we'll do a little bit of mindful movement, kind of building on the breath cycle that we just did. I'm going to share a movement that is somewhat common in different types of dance classes. It's a part of choreography I teach regularly in teaching Moving for Life, which is a great organization that's different than Movement Fundamentals, which I mentioned earlier, but there are some connections as far as like the things that I've studied in both those programs. So anyhow, this is just a movement where you breathe in and you allow yourself to expand into the space. in any way you want to. So you could expand through your fingertips, you could grow big, and you don't have to be as big as me. This could be just a little growing out. And then when you exhale, it's going to move inward some way or another. Again, be really mindful of what feels right to your body, breathing in, expanding in any way, and exhaling, moving inward towards your navel center or your belly button. So when you move out, breathing in, feel some expanding through your fingers, through your toes, and then breathing out, exhaling, moving a little bit back inward towards that center. Breathing in, expanding in some way, and breathing out. You might feel the movement through your spine gently if that feels good to you. Breathing in, expanding outward, and breathing out, connecting inward. As I mentioned, if you want to try standing up and just getting up a little bit, make sure you have that clear space to just breathe in and expand. And exhale, connect inward. Doesn't have to look anything like what I'm doing. Just make sure that it feels good to you. This is a movement where if you have any tendency to get dizzy, it can be helpful to look straight ahead as you do that. Find that point to focus on. Or if you don't get dizzy, it might feel really nice to relax your head and neck. A few more breaths. Breathing in, expanding, and breathing out, connecting, condensing. This movement could be big or small, faster or slower than me. Let's take one more, breathing in and exhaling, connecting back inward. That was beautiful. Just notice how you feel after doing a little bit of movement, mindfully moving with your breath in your body. I love that simple sequence. It's one of my favorite parts of teaching the Moving for Life classes. And yeah, I'm just really thankful for the different trainings and learnings and experiences that I've had, and being able to connect these different things I've learned from different places and people through this workshop is really fun. So thanks for giving it a try with me. Okay, we're going to come back to our drawing station here. So you might want to be seated, get that drink of water. It's warm where I am, so make sure you're staying hydrated as we go through this process. And I'm going to invite you to try the contour drawing of something else. So choose a different thing in your space. It could be a person, it could be an object, it could be your own self, part of your own self. And of course, if you're drawing a person, you can ask them if that's okay with them. And the invitation here is to find a new piece of paper in your notebook or journal. And the invitation is to try the contour drawing with your non-dominant hand. So add another little challenge. And helping our brains just shift into different modes or ways of thinking and perceiving, which can be really helpful for any type of creative thinking, whether it's becoming a visual artist or whether it's just approaching a problem or a situation or a project with a creative and open mind. So breathing for creativity is the theme, and we're continuing to keep that going. So I'm putting the marker or the writing utensil in my left hand because I'm a right-handed. Generally, I'm right-handed and use my right hand. And then whenever you're ready, choose another, could be plant, object in your space, and choose that starting point. And remember, you might want to Just make sure you have the ability to not look at your paper. You're going to look at the object. Imagining that you are touching the object as you draw it. What does the edge of that feel like? So start anywhere on the object. When you're ready, just keeping that easy, gentle awareness of your breath. And just following the contour, reminding yourself this doesn't have to be perfect. It's really not the purpose. It's more about connecting to your senses in some different ways. So breathing, noticing where your body is being supported by a surface. Or surfaces. Staying focused on that contour, the edge. Trying to keep your pencil or pen moving on the page. Noticing your breath. And if you can feel your breath fill up your belly, and as you're moving through this exercise, imagining you're touching the edge of what you're drawing. And free to move really slow. You can do this at different speeds, and just feel free to move slowly or whatever speed feels right to you for now. Sometimes you just trust your pace. And whenever you're ready, you can bring this drawing to a gentle close. Just take a moment and look at that object or whatever you chose to draw. Look at it again. And then you can look at your drawing, your contour drawing, and it's it's always a fun surprise to me to look down and see like, oh my gosh, what did I draw? So I drew one of the leaves of this kale plant. It had a lot of intricate details. I went on quite a journey. Here's what I drew. Now, your drawings might look more accurate towards what you drew, depending on where your focus is and how you're approaching this exercise. So, and the speed at which you're moving, lots of different factors. But just take a moment and see what you drew and appreciate your process and your art and what you saw and how that translated through your senses. And also how you experience that. So you might just notice, how do you feel after using your non-dominant hand? I mean, that's also another part of this, is that makes it harder, right, to do exactly what we see with our non-dominant hand. So take that moment to notice what you saw. Okay, so moving into the next part of our workshop is going to be community connection. And I'd like you to just take a moment to notice the community feeling in the space that you're in. So for me right now, I'm sitting by myself on a porch, and I'm also surrounded by living things, by plants, by trees, and also by people that live close to me. So some that I know and some that I don't. So you can just connect for a moment to what is the sense of community in your space right at this moment. And the invitation is to look and see with your eyes or maybe hear with your ears just a sign of community. It could be you see a tree branch, or you hear the wind moving through the trees, or you hear the sound of a car, or the sound of a neighbor, or maybe the sound of a family member or friend nearby. Just notice through your senses. How do you feel and know that you're not alone? Even if maybe perhaps you're by yourself, you're not ever alone. You could expand that sense of community, just bring someone to mind, even perhaps someone who you think of as being part of your community, or a way you feel connected in your community. And I invite you again just to come back to your space, to this moment, and look around or listen around. Feel, maybe you're feeling connections to sources of support. It could be through the chair you're sitting on, even though it's not a living thing. It's still part of the community of things, even. Just kind of broad sense of community here. And perhaps when you see or hear something with your arm, I'd like you just to imagine that your fingertips are a paintbrush. And we'll start with our dominant hand, okay? So I'm right-handed, I'm going to use my right hand. I just hear a lawnmower, so it's a sign that I'm not alone. And I'm just going to perhaps translate what I'm hearing and seeing through my movement. So this could be my movement, the sound of the lawnmower. Someone is doing something, you might hear something else. Remember to be mindful and gentle with your body as you're translating a sound or a sight. Or maybe I'm really looking at this tree over there. So now, when you're moving on to the next thing, the next sight or sound, I invite you to switch hands. So I just use my dominant hand. Now I'm going to use my non-dominant hand. See something else or hear something else. I see a tree and I love the curve of it. So I'm just going to imagine I could paint that with my fingertips or my arm or my hand. Oh, here comes that lawnmower again. I'm going to go with this movement back to my right hand. And then maybe with your left hand, you flip back and forth. And maybe you see that same thing or hear that same thing. Maybe you find something else in your space. Switching hands each time, okay? So I'm going to see a plant in my space, and I'm just going to trace the outline of the plant. You could trace the contour. That's one possibility. Or maybe do a movement that represents the plant. So I'm seeing a kale plant, and maybe that's something I'll eventually eat. So I'm just going to make up a gesture. Trace the contour, make up a gesture. I'm just giving you some options and possibilities. I'm going to try the lawnmower move with my non-dominant hand now. Maybe I'm hearing different sounds, so you could be hearing or seeing and just translating that into a gesture or a movement. Sounds like a lawnmower is going around and around. And I might see the leaves blowing in the breeze. And I just emulate the movement of the leaves and the wind. Or you could take your fingertips and imagine you could follow the line with your fingers, just gently painting like a watercolor painting. With the leaves, my fingertips turned into paintbrushes. Or I might look down and I'm seeing the boards on the floor of this deck where I'm sitting. I'm just kind of moving a little bit inspired by what I'm seeing or what I'm hearing. It's just being specific each time, switching my hands. Okay, now I'm going to look to the other side. I'm going to use my left hand. I just invite you to do this on your own as well. Just following. You could choose to follow the contours of something with your hand, or maybe make up a movement that relates to the sound or quality. You see those leaves rustling in the wind again, so I might just allow my fingertips to translate that feeling of the breeze. And then the wind chimes, other hand, kind of sensing. You could imagine you're following the contours for a little bit. If that's interesting, of a tree, of a leaf, really gently. Or moving with the quality that you hear or see. And then perhaps coming into allowing this again to go back into the contour idea, but this time you're just doing it in the air, so you're not keeping a record of what you drew. You're just following the contours of anything you see. So stick to that now. Just following the contours, being mindful and gentle of your body and what feels good as you do this. So the priority is on feeling good, not on doing the perfect art, but just feeling good and being mindful of how your body feels. You could go over the same contour lines for a moment if it feels good. You might then switch to the other side, and you might notice, different shapes and contours of things. Some things are very curvy, and other things are more linear. So just feeling into different contours. Being mindful of your breath and continuing to alternate which hand is leading the way. Softening through your eyes, imagining you were perhaps touching the contour, and just stay with something for as long as it's interesting. It might not be very long. And then shift to the other side and find something else to look at in your space. Not about perfection at all. It's just about enjoying the process and finding curiosity and movement and flow, creativity, breathing for creativity. Okay, let it go. Maybe take your hands and just imagine you have this canvas in front of you and you're just going to kind of clear it all away. See, erase or brush it to the wind. Say, wow, that was a beautiful art process. And now I'm just letting it go. It was cool. I did some neat things. I was inspired by the community of sounds and sights and energies and everything around me in this moment. Now letting it go and just coming into a moment of reflection, perhaps, and just imagining, taking a moment to imagine some part of your community that you would like to connect to. So this is kind of intention setting and visualizing a bit. So perhaps there's a person you'd like to connect more with, and make a connection or deepen an existing connection. Perhaps it could be a person, but it could also be something maybe even in nature or a place maybe in your community that you'd like to get to know more. So just see what comes to mind for you. Is there something or someone calling your connection, calling you into community? And I invite you to just take a few moments. You could, if you want to, you could just find a gentle stillness and just let your breathing be easy and free. Like I'm feeling really relaxed in this sunshine and this purple chair, so I'm just going to close my eyes and breathe into imagining that community connection that I'd like to deepen or create. You can have your palms on your belly if you want to, and just visualizing that. And if nothing comes to mind, that's okay. You could also just plant some seeds in your imagination, in your heart, just thinking, okay, what connections do I want to bring into being either deepening connections I already have or maybe making a new connection that I haven't made. Just breathing into that sense of community. Trusting that the right vision or the right connection or impulse is working through you, through your spirit, through your energy. See what comes to your imagination, what comes to your mind and heart as you imagine feeling more connected in community. It might be a person who comes to mind, it might be a place, maybe someone you've been thinking of reaching out to, or a creative idea or connection you'd like to make, collaborative, creative connection. See what you notice in your space, what you notice in your heart, the sounds and sights around you and in your imagination as well. And we'll take a few moments longer here to breathe into that. You might notice different sounds in the background of this video and also in your own space, and you hear the sirens, and it makes me think about how community is really important right now. Different forms of community are more needed, and just notice what you might need for your own heart and well-being in community. Continuing to breathe through it. Whenever you're ready, if your eyes were closed, just gently opening your eyes and maybe wiggling your fingers and your toes. And that was a little bit of a relaxed approach to connecting with community. So just take a moment, again, take into your sense of sight. What do you see around you in your space? What do you hear? What are the signs of community and community connection? And just consider, what was it that you decided that you were going to grow, a community connection you want to grow or plant seeds or deepen an existing roots of a connection that you already have. And if nothing came to mind, that's okay. Maybe just trust that you planted some seeds, and who knows, maybe something will come to you later. So I invite you, if you'd like to, we're going to move into some focusing. And there's many ways to focus. Focus just as one of the parts of the Breathe for Change workshop. And also as a way of connecting to this theme, Breathe for Creativity. So kind of weaving along with the spirit of community and the spirit of the space around you and also around me, I'm going to invite you into connecting with the sense of trees and how trees are really an important part of our planet and our life in community, because they help the earth breathe, and we're breathing all the time. And trees are helping clean our air. They're helping our planet be able to breathe. And so taking a moment to just feel into our connection with trees all over the world. Maybe you visualize the trees all over the world. And I invite you, if you'd like to just from wherever you are, just embody a tree shape. So trees are all kinds of shapes, right? They don't have to always reach up toward the sun, though in some ways they usually do. But they reach down. Maybe through your sitting bones, you're reaching down and then reaching up, and just find any shape that feels good to your body in this moment, a tree inspired shape. Now, when you get there, maybe you sway in the breeze. And just breathe into this shape. And then whenever you're ready, let that tree shape go, or come back to just a neutral sitting or neutral place. And then whenever you're ready, you can breathe into another beautiful tree shape. So you might even get up and move into your space a bit, or you might stay seated if that feels good. Just breathe into any tree shape that feels good. Take as many breaths as you want. Let your tree evolve and grow and move, or find stillness. Really be mindful of your body and what feels good to you. And whenever you're ready, let it go and find another tree shape that really speaks to you and feels good to you in this moment. You can use your breath to just focus into that tree shape, focus into that movement. You might, like I said, you might choose to stand up and move a bit into your space. Could be all kinds of beautiful tree shapes. You could use the support that's around you. If you're moving with others, you might connect with others through ways that feel good to and supportive to you and those others you're with. You can move between sitting and standing, being mindful, respectful of yourself and others. Appreciating the support that's in your space. Maybe you notice parts of your space that are made of trees, like the wooden floor I'm looking at, or the wooden deck that was made by a tree. And also appreciating real trees in your space, trees that are living right now. Focusing, sharing some gratitude with the trees, really reflecting maybe a bit on how trees grow in such creative and unique ways. No two trees are exactly alike. You can explore being a little tree or a big tree. Or feel free to stay in the shape longer than me. You could also look at the shape of a tree in your space or in my background to inspire you. Take one or two more tree shapes. Whenever you're ready, you gently bring this exercise to a close. And we'll move into the creative expression part of a Breathe for Change workshop. And I'm going to give you a choice here in the creative expression section. Okay, so you always have choices, and that's part of being a human is recognizing and being aware that we do usually have choices, and being more aware of those choices can be a liberating and healing process. So the options I'll offer, and of course, feel free to take this in your own creative direction because that's sometimes how creativity works. Is you say, "Oh, I got another idea," so feel free to follow along with one of these ideas or do your own thing. But I'm going to invite you to come back to your journaling notebook, and find a clear, fresh piece of paper. Always use the backs of paper. Um, and so you could choose to contour draw something in your space again. If you're really enjoying that process, like I really do, you might see something in your space and choose to do that blind contour drawing process again. You could choose to do that with your dominant hand or your non-dominant hand. I um, invite you to do what feels interesting and good. You could even switch, there's a lot of possibilities. But contour draw something in your space, or it could be your own, maybe your foot or your hand or some part of you that you can see while you're drawing. Okay. Um, or you could, if you're kind of tired of contour drawing, you want to try something else. You could simply draw a continuous line with your marker or crayon or whatever you're using, pencil. You could just draw a continuous line. If it feels fun to have a challenge, you could look at your paper and draw a continuous line that never touches itself. And that was actually something I did I went to a workshop a couple of years ago, and there was a person who had just completed her Breathe for Change certification leading a workshop. And I can't remember their name who guided the workshop. But they were really excited about completing the Breathe for Change program, and they shared a variety of really fun and cool exercises in their workshop that they presented. And one of the things we did was that continuous line that doesn't touch. I remember that. So I was excited to learn that, and then sharing it as offering it as an option you could do. Continuous line that doesn't touch. That one you might want to look, and that also requires a different type of focus. Finally, the third option would be just draw whatever you want. You could draw from your imagination. Maybe you're an artist, a visual artist, and you just love to draw. So you can draw whatever you want. That's an option too. Maybe you want to doodle flowers or hearts, or maybe you want to draw a person or anything you want. So 3 options. You could contour draw something in your space. Blind contour, non-dominant hand or dominant hand. Option 2, draw a continuous line that doesn't ever touch itself. So it's going to be probably kind of squiggly and all over. Could be kind of fun. Option 3, draw whatever you want. Okay? And then we'll have one more little movement before we start to relax and wind down for the closing of this workshop. Okay, so whenever you're ready, you can begin. Choose which option you'd like to do. Maybe get hydrated if you need a sip of water. And choose for yourself if you're going to use your non-dominant hand or dominant hand. Find the most comfort you can in however you're sitting. And whenever you're ready, get started. And we'll just have a few minutes here. And we will be connecting with this drawing a little bit after, so make sure you draw something. Okay, here we go. Feel free to explore different speeds. Enjoy you might enjoy moving a little faster or a little bit slower. Just kind of notice what feels good to you and what feels supportive to your exploring your senses and experience. Whenever you're ready, and slowly bring this process to a close. Maybe it's really sinking in, so take your time. You can come back to your drawing. Uh, so take a moment, maybe let's connect with how you feel after allowing yourself to explore your drawing. And if you'd like to, just take a moment and look at your drawing. Maybe you were doing a contour drawing like I was. You might have been trying the line that doesn't ever touch on itself. Maybe you just free drew whatever you wanted. And just take a moment, just appreciate your lines, the energy of the drawing. Maybe there's something about it that you feel like, oh, I want to get this right next time, or you might have different judgments. Just notice what comes up. There don't have to hang on to those judgments. Just notice, be aware of them, and just appreciate that you created something that was inspired by something. And I'll show you what my drawing looks like. I did some contour drawing, and I just kept on looking. I didn't kept on looking at different parts of this morning glory plant and the leaves and flowers. So, and I wasn't looking at my paper at all, and I was kind of following different parts of the plant and yeah, allowing myself to follow my interests. So that is what happened. And sometimes working with the size of a paper impacts what you do too, as well as the speed you are drawing at. So I was kind of feeling a certain tempo felt good to me, and then I felt like I used up my paper, the edges or the space. So I was kind of moving into the inside of my paper, which caused the lines to overlap quite a bit. But I feel when I look at it, I see kind of a little tiny glimpse of the essence of what I was drawing. So you might notice that too. Just notice, what did you draw? And I'm going to invite you for this last part of the creative expression, and then we'll move into some relaxation and kind of cooling down. So I'm just going to invite you to look at your drawing and study it a bit. Kind of notice the lines and the directions, maybe the qualities of the lines you chose, the color you chose to draw with, the connection with the paper. Notice the empty space. the shapes. And then whenever you're ready, the invitation here is to put the drawing somewhere where you can see it. You don't have to have it look at it constantly or anything like that, but the invitation is just to have it somewhere kind of visible in your space. And then let it go for a moment and just without looking at first, just let yourself move in a little way that's inspired by those lines and qualities of your drawing. So see if you can kind of just hold that image of what you saw and just move in some of the ways. Like there were some angular lines and motions. I'm kind of going to try some movements. Remember to be mindful of your body and do what feels good to your body. That's the most important thing. But have fun with just exploring some of the lines, some of the qualities, some of the shapes. And your movement might look really different than mine. It probably will because you didn't do the same drawing as me. You can get up if you want, or you can stay seated. It's up to you. Choose for yourself how you're going to move some of those lines. You could always look back at your drawing, maybe move some of those contours or some of those energies. You could choose to even walk in your space. If you're feeling like the movement is kind of hard to tap into, you could also just walk in your space, or even imaginary walk with your fingertips on your hand or something. But you could walk with your feet too, and you could move some of the directions and the lines that you just drew. So there's a variety of ways you could interpret this. If you're moving in the space with others, be sure that you are mindful of others in your space and giving other people space to move. And just enjoy kind of following the path. You could do this through your fingertips and hands. Do it through any part of your body. You could also just walk the path in different directions in your drawing. Follow your interest, follow your curiosity. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect or exact. It's just kind of catch a feel for your drawing through your movement and see where it takes you. Maybe it takes you in some new directions or new qualities or unfamiliar qualities of movement that might feel kind of fun to explore. Remember, it could be just as simple as walking in the different directions, as if your drawing was like a map guiding you. Oh, you go a little bit here, and then you turn here, and then you go up. Maybe go backwards to the side. So I'll be a little quiet for a moment and give you another minute just to explore. Having fun. You can always look away from your drawing and be inspired by the space or by your own body and what it just naturally wants to do. If you're moving with others, you might be inspired by their movements or maybe my movements, or maybe the drawings or the objects or the parts of nature you've seen. You can choose to be sitting or standing. You can look at the drawing as much as you want, and you can also let it go as much as you want. Maybe hold that image or quality in your imagination, or continue to be inspired by the space around you too. Whenever you're ready, just bring your movement, whether it's walking or with a dancing, with a rhythm, bring that all to gentle closing. And Take a moment to appreciate your creative process, your creative expression, and creative movement, your creative drawing, creative being, just being. All of us are creatives just because we're alive. We're all unique, and we all have creative gifts to share and to develop and to learn more about. Um, so we'll come into a little bit of closing relaxation. And for this part, I invite you to just take a moment, maybe get a sip of water if you'd like to. And feel free to relax in a comfortable place if you want. In a chair, you could choose to maybe even be lying down on the floor if you have a good space for that. Or standing, sitting, lying, you choose what's most relaxing for you in this moment. And we'll just begin by taking a few belly breaths. And we'll do one last short drawing exercise, and then we'll take a few more breaths together. So if you'd like to, you could bring your palms to your belly and maybe find ease and release. So it might feel better to you to kind of sit up more. You choose, okay? You might close your eyes, you might keep them open. Just take a moment and breathe deep into your belly. You might breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Let's just take 3 more breaths together. Still on your own timing, but just breathing in and out. 3 breaths. Beautiful. I invite you, we're just going to connect our contour drawing with our breath for a moment to close as part of our winding down and still relaxing, and then we'll come into closing. But you can find your notebook again and perhaps find that blank sheet of paper or use back page. And the invitation here is to use your non-dominant hand if you'd like. And I'm going to also invite you to close your eyes. So really use your senses. Make sure, especially if you're using a permanent marker, that you're staying on the page. So you might want to close your eyes if that feels okay to you. And you might take your dominant hand and put it on your belly somewhere. The invitation is to just take some belly breaths. Continue breathing deep into your belly and exhaling out. And allow your pen or marker to trace the contour of your breath. Just trace the path you imagine your breath is moving in through your nose, and then maybe it goes down to your belly and you feel your belly, and then it goes back out, comes back in. So your line might move up and down, it might take a little detours and twists and turns. See what happens for you. Just really see if you can connect that sense, like you're touching your own breath, the path of your own breath, and you're drawing it, translating that. And you're doing all this with your eyes closed if you'd like. Okay, let's see what happens. Close your eyes. Non-dominant hand is writing, and your dominant hand can be on your belly if that feels good to you. And whenever you're ready, I'll just give you a minute or so. So take your time with this to really feel into your breath and your connection with the line of your breath, the path of your breath. Go ahead and take one or two more breaths, following the contour. Letting it go. Whenever you're ready, you can gently open your eyes and maybe look and see your drawing. Continue noticing your breath, breathing deeply. I'll show you my interesting breath pattern drawing. It might look very different than yours, or maybe it looks similar, who knows, but this is my path of breath. And the wind and the trees were breathing with me. I really felt that through the breezes, like right now. Um, so yeah, just take a moment to appreciate, again, the creative rhythm of your breath and the creative expression that you just drew, and how maybe you feel. Just take a moment and notice anything you notice about how you feel right now. You take a deep breath in and out again. Just see, maybe there's a couple of words that come to mind. If you'd like to, you might not have as many words with the contour drawing. Sometimes words, the sense of processing through words gets a little quieter for me, and I really appreciate that. Being able to shift sometimes out of words, and be a little bit more in a state of seeing and relating and being, that's more connected into the senses. So that's part of why I enjoy this process. And I also love to think in words, and my brain is often writing and thinking that way too. So it's not that one way is better or worse. It's just that there are so many ways of being and perceiving and experiencing life, and being learning about these different ways, I think, can help us to have a more full life experience and be able to connect more with ourselves and with others. So if you'd like to, maybe two words have come to your mind, or maybe not. If words have come, perhaps you write two words down about how you feel. Or if words don't come, maybe you just make a few little squiggles or doodles. You don't have to represent anything. Just be more of the felt experience of how you feel. Take that moment. See if anything comes to mind. Words or doodly expressions. I wrote down, I feel alive, and I drew some doodles. So, however you feel, I hope that you gain some new connections or experiences that you can apply in your life or day to day life, in some way, adapt or apply as you breathe for creativity in your own um, life process and wellness journey, breathing for creativity, and knowing that just being is a creative act. It's nothing you have to do, it's something that you are. And I'm so thankful for you all joining me in this process, in this creative process, and in this video. And I'm thankful to my high school art teacher and to my movement fundamentals teacher, and to the inspiration I wove a little bit in from Moving for Life, and also from various yoga training, including from Breathe for Change. That's this workshop is especially uh, for completing my Breathe for Change certification process. And I'm looking forward to also creating more workshops and videos in person that explore this similar topic. And I'll continue to draw inspiration from this fabulous book, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. But it's a really wonderful resource for anyone interested in creativity, and particularly drawing, but it can apply to lots of things. So thank you all so much for joining in today, and I hope that oops, I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day and continue breathing for creativity and being your unique, beautiful, creative self. Thanks for tuning in. Bye for now.